Hello, people. Welcome back to another comments video by your good friend Chad Marco, the big Anarchy. Make sure you guys attack that like button right now and check out my other social media, wherever it is on the screen. So yeah, there's another comments video, so I'm gonna get right to it. Oh my god, I can't see. All right. So Rating29 says on the Why Men Feel Dating Isn't Worth It video, one, juice isn't worth the squeeze. Men are realizing it's not worth spending money on only a chance to get to know a woman, while she's giving effort by gracing him with her presence. Just look at a first date alone and yourself, who is expected to approach, plan, and pay more times than not. Men, and don't get me started on the absurd court me, chase me, one-sided delusion some have. That gets old real fast to anyone with self-respect. So I think right now, and a lot of things that I talked about in the video, and I think this is very relevant. What's kind of happening is that like the value difference, the inherent value difference between men and women is like so extreme. Like the average woman has so much more value than the average man that, you know, they're able to demand and expect much more of men than we can of them. And really, I feel like that's a big part of what's kind of creating the dating crisis of our time. It's that value gap. And, you know, especially for myself, like I look, again, I'm a very positive, optimistic type of person in general, but I'm not stupid either. And like when I just think about the value difference between me and the average woman, like it really does just feel it feels hopeless, basically. And I think that's essentially what he's getting at here. It's just like the expectations are just so high, and that's why a lot of guys just don't want to deal with it. But number two, social media has given so many a fairy tale on what a healthy relationship is. It has also promoted a lot of toxicity onto men and women, from red pill content with men and she's pink pill content with the women. I think many are aware about toxicity, misogyny in the red pill space, but what goes left untalked about is the toxicity, misandry in the pink pill space. Even subtle misandry, like again on a first date, ask yourself, who typically is expected to approach, plan, and pay for the date? That includes the type of women who hide behind whoever asks, I hate that, or the type claiming they are open to going Dutch but feel a type of way if he doesn't stop her from going Dutch. Now, this part I don't really like. I'm at the point where I just kind of don't give a fuck as much. Like, I feel like when I look at the red pill and the pink pill, and you can go, you know, chicken before the egg, which one started the beef between men and women. But I feel like what's happening as well is that men and women are developing new strategies with dealing with each other. Now, I always looked at red pill as being a reaction to the changes that are happening with women that you can link to feminism, social media, different culture changes and things like that. Now, women, they will argue that pink pill is a reaction to the things that they were dealing with in regards to men. I'm not here to play the blame game, but the reason why I think like the red pill or pink pill is actually useful for people is because it does provide like strategies and tips and advice on how to deal with these changes. I just think that the reason why it tends to rub people the wrong way is because a lot of it is predicated on like the issues and the divide between men and women. Like it's inherently based in like things like distrust and you know, basically it's like defensive strategies, because men no longer trust women no longer trust men. And I think that's why, again, these types of talking points and the philosophy, if you will, of these pills, again, can come across as being negative to some people. But again, I look at it as just a reaction to the changes that are happening in our society rather than something inherently bad. Three-piece, this really a combination of one and two and several other things, but the point is a lot of men are just done trying. It's not worth the energy to deal with the drama, games, and tests. What men and women honestly start need to doing with some of these outdated and absurd demands and standards is ask yourself, would it survive the gender swap test? And I'm saying that to both men and women. Those are three general reasons I think why men specifically are trying less often to date. Peace. Oh man, I love peace for sure. I remember Coach Greg Adams, he was telling a story about when he was on a date with a woman, and I think the woman asked him, I'm gonna butcher the story, but the woman asked him something like what he expects from a woman, and I think he said something like a woman that like brings him peace or doesn't disrupt his peace, and she got visibly offended by that. But you know, these are like simple things, like the expectation that men have in terms of like how we want respect and we want a peaceful life and things like that. And I don't that now some of the things that guys might want or desire, okay, I can understand why women might not like that. But when we start talking about, oh, I want peace, and that's a problem. Peace is an issue. But yeah, man, and I swear, bro, like I'm not trying to act like I know so many people to give, you know, to make this claim. But I swear, man, sometimes I feel like I'm one of the happiest people in my entire fucking state, or at least the city. And I think a lot of it just has to do with how I prioritize peace of mind over anything else. I always choose peace of mind over anything. And I think for a lot of people, their relationships don't bring them peace. You know, and that goes for men and women. There are a lot of women who, you know, they're in relationships with abusive, toxic men and vice versa. So, you know, I think that's a big one as well. Because when you start to not just having a standard as far as like physical beauty, but standard in terms of like, you know, how does having this person in my life affect my mental well-being, my health, my peace of mind? What's mental health? That's what we love that word in 2025, right? But how does this person affect those things? When you start having that standard, you start looking at people differently. You know, it's like that story I told you guys in the video, the 33-year-old virgin, about like that crazy girl that came here and was checking out my anime shit. You know, okay, maybe I could have bagged her, but if she was as crazy as the vibe that I got from her, you know, that wouldn't have been good for me in terms of like my actual life. So I think on that level, not just physical beauty, but you know, how does having this person in my life, how would that affect, you know, my peace? So, where the fuck this came from? On the most important traits of an ideal girlfriend, shorts, Sir Please says, good luck finding any of that for a woman to express any of these traits. She has to genuinely admire and respect you as a man. Guys like us often aren't worthy of that to them unless we have high status. And I agree. And this kind of goes back to what I was talking about before. Like a lot of the dating game now and finding success is about your own inherent value. I think the more value you have, then the better quality and more quantity of women you will have available to you. You know, I don't look at myself as being like a bad person or like, you know, trash or anything like that. But, you know, being a good person and having a good life, enjoying your life, that doesn't always equal being high value in terms of like the things that women appreciate and the things that women want. It's kind of like that meme, where, you know, it says guys live like this and don't find anything wrong with it, and it'll be a room with like a PlayStation 5, a TV, and a couch. But you know, I'm that type of person where it doesn't take a lot for me to be happy. But I think also like that has made me like less like ambitious in terms of it's kind of like with my job, right? I had a friend that was encouraging me to get a better paying job, but I like my job. I don't make that much, but I'd rather have a job that I like that doesn't disrupt like my peace of mind than the one where I'm making more money, you know, and I might be able to like, you know, attract more hoes or buy more shit at the expense of my peace of mind and things like that. And again, I just think that's one of those things, right, in terms of like value. You know, do you want to, or are you willing to do the things that are going to increase your value in the eyes of women? And again, the way you dress, the way you talk, the amount of money you make, all these things. But yeah, man, it's like you can't, and really now that I think about it, I don't think that I was like making any necessarily unreasonable demands. And I think that's another good point too, because I feel like another thing that kind of happens in this discussion is like people try to really gaslight guys into making us feel like our standards are like too high or like unreasonable. I think a lot of what I talked about aren't unreasonable things. Like I said, oh, a girl that's a good mother or this, you know, at least somewhat attractive isn't crazy, right? Like I'm talking bare minimum shit. Man. But still, a woman like that, and really now that I think about it, it's kind of like a woman that doesn't come with a list of obvious red flags and negatives is worth her weight in gold. Like a average ass bitch that just isn't crazy and might cook sometimes. Like there's so much value in even that. So, but again, he's right though. It's like you gotta, you know, if you want a quality woman, then you gotta either raise your own value in terms of what they expect and what they want, or just say fuck it. I said fuck it, I'm gonna just live for myself. So Alex Barona says on the parents who regret having kids video, that whole postpartum depression thing women go through, rehab room, don't know if you know about him, once made a video in which he explained that he believes that most likely it's only women that married and or procreate with oofy doofy guys that go through postpartum depression. In other words, women who marry Chads and all the racial variations of Chads and procreate with Chad, or at least high tier normies, probably don't go through that. So if you guys don't know, postpartum depression is something that women tend to go through after they have children. They go through this period of depression and sadness, and a lot of times this period can cause a divide between a man and a woman. But what he's saying here is presenting a theory where this only happens when women go for oofy doofies or beta males. And again, I'm not sure about this. I haven't looked into that theory. It's definitely something interesting to go into. He says that rehab room here is the one that explains it. So that's something to look into. But it kind of makes me think about another thing that I've heard people say in regards to like birth control or like women's ovulation cycle, and how the type of men that women would go for changes depending on their ovulation cycle. I forgot exactly how it works, but it's something like when a woman is ovulating, like she's more likely to be receptive to beta males. Or I forgot again. Don't quote me on, because I'm sure I'm fucking it up. But it kind of reminds me of that theory, of how like the type of guy that women goes for changes depending on their ovulation cycle. And so maybe this has some tie to that, because of course, you know, childbirth and pregnancy is closely connected to you know, a woman's ovulation cycle and the changes in her body and mind and things like that. But that's definitely something interesting to look into. So Gudako Madness says on the Black Cell response video, we goofy ninjas just have to be real and stay humble under God. At least that's all I need to live. So basically going along with what I always say, you know, pretty much just be yourself. And if you are religious, you know, God is not a bad thing to put forth. Me myself, I'm not necessarily religious. But I think that could be very helpful for guys who are, you know, I never try to discourage men from dating. I don't want to get in the way of guys, you know, taking advantage of opportunities that might be available to them, because I don't know their situation like I know mine. But if you're trying to walk this path, this wizard, you gotta have something. And I think for me, amongst other things, you know, for me, it was just finding a sense of purpose in the world in terms of like my creativity and just all types of self-improvement. Like when I started to realize like all the different ways that I can improve myself, like when you think about the different things that you do throughout the day and how you can build upon that and improve upon that. Like there's so much that you can do to make yourself and to make your overall life better. You know, that's what keeps me going. That's what keeps me energized and having a zest for life as a single guy. But yeah, I mean, and going back to religion, again, I'm not religious myself, but I remember certain quotes from the Bible. And there's one in particular that stands out to me. I forgot the exact Bible verse. I think it's Psalms. I forgot which one. But it basically says, a man is better off in the desert than with a mean and contentious woman. I'm sure I fucked that up, but but basically what it was saying was that you're better off alone in the fucking wilderness than with a crazy bitch. And you know, I almost want to coin like our generation, like the guys like myself who, you know, going their own way, embrace being single. Like we are the desert men, basically. Like we chose to just live in the fucking desert as opposed to, you know, dealing with some of a lot of the bad options that might be available to us. But again, that's why I say I kind of agree that religion can be a good thing for men who have the belief, who have the faith to focus on, because it does touch on these types of subjects, you know, sort of the challenges of being married and comparing that with being single and things like that. There are a few verses in the Bible that actually address that from my memory. So on the same video, L. Harris says, "You seem like a reasonable young man. You'll make it, bruh." And then Crown Clan says, "Not if he keeps his mindset." And then Harris responds, "He's really not that bad. He'll be fine." You know, I think it depends on what you mean by fine, though. Because I think a lot of times people look at, like, when you say you'll make it, like, what are we talking about? You know? And I think it's like when you say make it, you could say getting a girlfriend, or my music blowing up, or getting 100,000 subscribers on YouTube, or something like that, right? And for me, making it is something entirely different. And for me, like when I think about it, in a sense, I've already made it, because I think the most important obstacle that I ever overcame was depression and wanting to delete myself. To me, like there is no battle that was more important than that. Like finding a reason, manifesting the desire to live and to push myself and to face the challenges of life. That was the most important thing that I ever gained. When I think about it, like I can't imagine anything more important than that. You know, even if you talk about getting bitches or making more money or the music, content creator, videos, all that shit, none of that matters if I'm not happy, if I'm not actually enjoying my life. You know, you have a lot of people who are immensely more successful than I am in a lot of different areas in life, but they're not happy. And, you know, I wouldn't trade my happiness and self-love for all the shit that somebody else might have if they don't have that, you know? And so in that sense, I feel like I made it. It's just about maintaining that. But of course, with that, you can build upon, you know, the happiness and the self-love and the joy that I already have. So, you know, I do want to continue to make it in terms of greater successes and greater accomplishments. But I feel like the most important thing about my life, the most important thing to me, is just maintaining happiness, maintaining health, maintaining integrity, honor, self-discipline, maintaining those, like that's the most important thing. Is just really, I'm at the maintenance part. Like I achieve things that are great to me, and I just want to build upon and maintain those things. But of course, again, when you talk about making it, let's do more. You know, but maybe one day I will get some hoes, and make some money through music or get a 500,000 subscribers or something. Yeah, let's set those goals. But like I said, it just depends on what making it means to you. And so Hedgehog D Sonic says on the "Why Living with Your Parents is the Next MGTOW," says the problem with living at home with your parents is that they are not going to be here forever, and chances are if you're in your 20s or 30 or maybe even 40, you got to start preparing to live without them. I already lost my dad and my mom isn't getting any younger. I make decent money but not for where I live. We all eventually are going to have to live without our parents, so I disagree heavily with this video. I don't think men being content doing low wage work is going to cut it, especially if you live in an expensive state. Maybe not making six figures, but there are jobs that make decent money. Garbage men, construction, etc. Something, plus having those types of jobs can be rewarding because you feel like you're contributing something meaningful to society. So and basically in this video, I talk about how, for me, I believe that staying with your parents is the next MGTOW. Or basically, when you look at men going their own way, it was men adapting to the changes in women and either not dealing with them at all or just choosing not to get married, etc. And so the reason why I look at living with your parents as the next MGTOW is because I see it as the next adaptation to dealing with a changing economy in a world where things are becoming more expensive. Now, Hedgehog does bring up a good point. And I think there are a lot of variables to this strategy. You have guys who simply don't like living with their parents and cannot find peace living with their parents. Me, that's not my situation. Me and my mom, we get along great. We work great as a team. I like my living situation. I love my home, etc. Also, another thing about my situation, like I said in the video, is that my mom, in her will, it's written that I inherit the house. So that's another variable or thing to take into consideration. So yes, your parent is not always going to be there. However, who is going to get the home after they die? So they're not going to be here, okay, forever, great. But where's the house going to go? Is the house paid for? Is it 50% paid for? 60, 70? Like, so that's why I stand on this, because I see where he's coming from, but I think he's more so addressing like the negative variables, the things that could fuck it up, which are relevant. Like, don't just like think about it from all these different angles. But I'm just saying, if you live in a home with your parents that's already paid for, then you already have a significant leg up on people, because you are lined up to have a home, and you just got to put yourself in position to be able to maintain it when they're gone. Now, I do agree with the sense of, like, preparation. Again, your parents aren't always going to be there, so you have to prepare for that. But again, these are all things you can do while living with your parents. While living with my mom, I taught myself how to drive. I taught myself how to do my own laundry, how to cook my own food, how to handle my own business, fill out my own applications and papers. So again, this isn't something that is going to get in the way of that. And when we start talking about like the amount of money that you make, the reason why I don't go on about telling guys you got to make 75K, 100K, whatever K, is because I'm looking at things realistically. And what I mean is, everybody is not going to be in position to make like that higher end of income. Now, that's not a bad idea. But even if you do get those better paying jobs, living with your parents is still an advantage because of you not having to pay all that money in rent and shit like that. Like, bro, I'm gonna just be honest with you guys, bro. Like, I have friends that make significantly more money than me that ask me for money. And I'm just being real. And I'm not, it's just real shit. And that's what friends are for. But this is all I'm saying. I know people that make way more money than me and ask me for money. I'm the broke nigga. I'm telling you, like, life is not what people try to tell you with it. Like, how you approach life is not what people, how they make it out to be, bro. And this is real shit. And there are ways to get the edge over other people and circumstances without even making that much money. What I realize about life it ain't always about how much you make. It's about how much your expenses are. So you're sitting there, a young man, you don't have no kids, you don't have no bitches, you live with your parents, bro. You can working a minimum wage job will actually put you on a similar level as the guys working in plumbing and construction, but who do live on their own, got kids, got a wife. They gonna be living paycheck to paycheck with no savings. You can have a savings working minimum wage. That's real shit. I experienced that. I know this. So again, if you want to take the path of making more money, I'm all for it. But again, I'm just looking at shit realistically. You know, there are only so many roles and positions in society for people to make that, you know, to make more money. Society operates as a pyramid in terms of like class. You have at the very top the elites, the millionaires, billionaires. Then you have middle class, lower class. If everybody can't elevate to middle class earning level, because then you won't have that lower class. So I'm looking at shit like that. Like, look, if you the motherfucker that work in this lower bracket, then what can you do to make your life easier? Because I know everybody is not going to elevate to that middle class level. You know, a lot of guys, they get up here and they'll throw people under the bus because they're at that lower class. I'm like, fuck it, bro. Somebody got to be, somebody gonna be there. There's no such thing as everybody being middle class and above. So, and I'm not gonna throw the lower class under the bus. If that's where you at, motherfucker, you might have to live with your parents to get an edge. But I'm just saying, like, if you play your cards right, it can work. But again, you gotta be aware of these variables. Are you preparing for your parents' inevitable demise? Is the house paid for? Are they going to leave you the house? Are they renting? How much money you make? What's your plan? Hell, do you want to have a family? So address all these variables. But like I said, man, like, I'm the broke dude, and people who make more money than me ask me for money. So make that make sense. And so Chad Marco on the Chad Marco Nice Girl official music video, the Indigo Leo says, I get this may be a joke, but think about it. You just made a song about an incel killing a girl that rejected him. A lot of dudes feel like this in real life. Is this the type of influence you want to incite? And then Junk responds and says, I understand what you're getting at. Some sick people may attach themselves to something like this, even if violence against women isn't the artist's true intention. But I think media becomes truly harmful when you have someone that deliberately advocates for or eludes or promoting bad things like violence against women. This is just edgy creative expression. Now, I get what Indigo is saying. Now, from my own perspective, my reasoning for making this video, obviously I'm not a serial killer. I don't condone harming women, killing women and shit like that. But if you know anything about me, I love horror movies. I love, slashers and monster movies and shit like that. So a lot of that song is just inspired by my interest in that. And even in the video, you can see like little clips of a horror movie that's put in there. I think it's called Werewolf in a Girl's Dormitory or something. But basically, that's a lot of the inspiration for that movie. And for that song. But also, when it comes to my music, I depend on people knowing or being aware and watching content like this, where I'm being more personal. If your introduction to me is that video, then you could think any goddamn thing. But you guys who actually have followed me over the years, you know that my personality and character is nothing of the sort to want to cause harm to women. And so I kind of depend on people to know to know the facts. But I can see what Indigo is saying, because the thing about like music and music artists, especially in hip hop, more than any other genre, I think is like there is an expectation of the music being a reflection of the character and the lifestyle of the artist. And now with Nice Girl, like I said, it's a reflection of my interest in horror movies and the macabre, dark stories of women going missing. And right, I would never deny that I have an interest in that type of content and videos and movies and whatnot. But in terms of the actual practice of it, hell no, fuck that shit. But like he said, because of the way that people tend to idolize artists, they could, I wouldn't even deny it. Like, there is a possibility that somebody could watch this music video and it could, God forbid, but I'm just being realistic. It's just like how I remember Ted Bundy, damn, we going deep now. Ted Bundy was doing the interview before he got executed. And now I feel like he was bullshitting, but he might not have been. And he was talking about what influenced him to become the way that he was. And he blamed a lot of it on like, having access to like graphic, violent, pornographic material as a child, as a teenager, like BDSM, sub-dom type of stuff, basically. A lot of people speculate that he was just trying to avoid the death penalty by seeking sympathy. But the point, like, what if there's truth to what he was saying? And then when you look at like horror movies and slasher movies and things like that, I think that it's very naive to say that these things don't have an influence on some people. I know I can watch those things and it doesn't influence me to become a serial killer or a murderer. You know, I'm the type of person, if I find a spider in my room, I'll catch him and release him outside before I even think to kill him. So, you know, I'm on that level of trying to maintain peace and respect for life. But yeah, like I said, I think it's just one of those things that I just accept, bro. Cause I feel like, again, if I made a horror movie, I wouldn't be held to that same standard. It would be like, oh, you know, Chad Marco made a horror movie. Great. But if I make music about the same topic, the same subject, now I'm influencing the youth. And again, in a sense, you can make that argument, but I'm saying that those influences are everywhere. And for me, I just accept that most people can enjoy the content without it influencing them to become a goddamn serial killer. But there are those that could watch or see or hear something and it could give them that push. I'm just being real. But like I said, it's like, I just don't feel like I should be held to a different standard because of, you know, the type of media that I create. Because you could say the same thing about fucking Persona 4 because it's a story about a serial killer throwing women in a goddamn TV and then they show up and hung up from the power lines. So should we hold everybody that made or participated in the creation of that game accountable for any possible influence that spoiler alert. Damn, my bad. Oh man, I might beep that out. I don't want to spoil getting spoiled on killer just fucking killed me, man. But spoiler time over. But yeah, man, it is basically, it is what it is, bro. It is what I hope not, but you never know. You never know. And so on the extreme natalism video, AccuDot says, never give up, never surrender, keep having kids. We together fight, thou we may not see each other even in the worst times. Old in spirit often remembers long ago a multitude of battles and speaks these words. Where is the horse? Where is the young warrior? Where is the giver of treasure? Where are the seats of banquets? Where are the joys in the hall? Alas, bright cup, alas, the male warrior. Alas, the glory of the prince, how the time is gone. Vanish under night's helm as if it never were. I don't know what the hell he talking about. And then my transhumanist Ralt says, nice cope. But then Acu responds, not what cope means. Cope is a thing you take when you can't have what you really want. Actually, cope means that you've successfully found a way to deal with a bad problem. I hate the way people throw cope. I try not to do it too much myself. I get like the new meme meaning is, you know, it means what he said. But actually, if you're coping, that means you've successfully found a way to deal with bad circumstances, basically. But yeah, essentially what he's trying to argue here is just never give up, never surrender, keep having kids. But the reason why I just don't fuck with this, to be honest, and you know, I brought up Stephen Molyneux because he was like what inspired me to make this video from his post online. And really the reason, to be honest, I've lost a lot of respect for him with these posts and whatnot. Most not because I disagree, but because I can't tell if he's being serious or not. Sometimes I feel like he's rage baiting a lot, and that's one thing I don't respect. I rather just disagree than just read somebody's shit and be like, this dude just fucking trolling it. But one of the main reasons why I disagree with like that particular argument for natalism is, again, going back to ancestors, your ancestors did it, pay it forward, all that shit, is because what I've realized is that when people say that, what they're actually doing is that they're picking and choosing what their ancestors did in order to justify what they want to do. It ain't about your ancestors. You're having kids because you want to have kids. The same way someone like me doesn't have kids because I don't want to. At the end of the day, we're all doing what we want to do. And the whole ancestry argument is really just picking and choosing what you want. Because this is the real shit that I realized. You want to talk about what someone's ancestors did. Let's look at white America or whatever. That's really the audience he's talking to. Let's be honest. Okay, their ancestors reproduced. Their ancestors also got guns and rebelled against the British Empire over taxes. So are you guys gonna do that because your ancestors are you? So you'll do the part where you have kids, but you won't actually take up arms or risk your freedom and your life and your safety to take down the tyrannical gut. Now you're aware, they don't act ignorant because you're aware of the system and why people don't want to have kids. You acknowledge it, but unlike your ancestors, you don't fight against it. You just have kids and offer them more slaves and more people to exploit. I don't want to hear that bullshit. If you're not willing to fight the way your ancestors did, if you ain't willing to pick up knives and pitchforks and shit, I don't want to hear that ancestor bullshit. I don't want to hear nothing about no obligation, no responsibilities, or none of that. Because it's selective. You're selecting and choosing. You're taking the easiest path. I'm going to have kids because I just want to have kids, but I'm not going to rebel against the system that's going to fuck my kids sideways, up, down, and diagonally. I don't want to hear that shit. And so Damuka says on the same video, why people act like having kids is some kind of great grand act. What the fuck? Nature made it the easiest thing to do to have kids. It's based on a selfish desire. Pleasure is not hard. It's so effing easy. People who chose to have kids are not that great. I'm tired of people acting like mating and producing offspring as a result, intended or not, is like something noble or like a service to humanity. It's not. Leave child-free people alone. And I agree. Now, don't get me wrong. I get the beauty of life and the wonder of the organisms of the world. Like, life is an amazing experience, an amazing thing. I'm not trying to devalue that, but it's more so like the process of it. Because when you think about it, it's not that hard to have kids. That ain't the hard part. Because even me, like, pretty much any guy could say, I'm gonna fuck the fattest, ugliest. I'm gonna fuck the fattest, ugliest bitch, and just, cause I see it. You know, where I'm from, I see it all the time. I mean, some of the women that I've seen reproduce, it's like, men, do you have no standard? It's like, men, please. But the point is like, it's not that hard. The hard part to me, the impressive part is raising a child to be, you know, a functional, healthy, happy, intelligent, capable adult. That's where the respect comes in for me. People just shouldn't, because I see it too much where I'm from. People just making babies for no damn reason, with no plan, no preparation, like nothing. It really, Lord, I ain't even get into that, but because I be seeing some shit, bro. So no, but you know, people who actually are good parents, spend time with their kids, provide for their kids, and all that, all respect in the world. Cause it is difficult to do it the right way. You know, it's a big investment, you know. I remember one time I was walking behind this woman, and she had like 2 or 3 kids with her. And I was just like thinking, like, man, how the hell do guys get with women who already got kids, bro? I'm looking at this woman and I'm looking at the lives around her. I'm like, Lord, this is a lot of weight. This is a lot of baggage, man. And guys just walk into that shit. It's crazy. Every living being exists to reproduce. If you don't reproduce, you're a loser. That's always funny to me that people make that argument, like that biological argument. The funny thing about this argument to me is that in reality, nobody gives a fuck. Nobody cares about this win-lose game of reproduction. Like, people say it as if the fucking universe is like sitting back and keeping tab of like, oh, he reproduced, he didn't. The universe does not give a fuck about you as an individual reproducing. It does not matter. Look, if you as the individual doesn't give a fuck, truth be told, nobody around you gives a fuck. The universe doesn't. Look, because life will find a way. The universe does not have a preference over your fucking average ass genes over anything else on this goddamn planet. Humanity could get wiped and the universe won't shed a goddamn tear, bro. Nobody cares. This is like some made up game that I feel like only nerds online talk about. Like the biological purpose and the success. You win if you, nobody gives a fuck. Only you care because that's something that you want to do. But the individual that doesn't want to have kids doesn't care. Nobody around him really gives a fuck for any good reason. Anybody who says that they do is usually because they want to exploit that child. It's like when governments talk about the birth rate crisis. It's not because they give a fuck about you having kids and your kids. They need more tax cattle. They need to keep the numbers going up and the needle moving. Somebody got to work these goddamn jobs. They need slaves. They need meat for the meat grinder wars and sacrifices. That's why they don't care about your child as an individual so they can do great things for them. They like, fuck you. Make me more slaves, bitch. And the universe definitely don't care. The universe will send a goddamn comet to blow up this whole earth. Nobody gives a fuck about you and your genes, bro, but you. And if you don't care, then who gives a fuck? Nobody. That was a nice little rant. Quito Brazil says people would do what they want, let them be. And Kitty A. Balaka says, yeah, let the crackheads breed. Their children will sure be great. Yes. Okay, Wolfmade said on the same video. Okay, so I think if you are a good moral human and can afford basics like a place to live, food, and clothing, then you should have children. They don't need exotic vacations or tons of toys. Just the basics and good parents to take care of them. Way too many of my friends put off having children because they couldn't afford their current lifestyle if they had kids. Like 5 vacations per year, a huge apartment, eating out all the time, having the latest electronics, etc. I mean, for me, I'm more of a live and let live type of guy. You know, if you don't want to have kids because you want to have 80 goddamn vacations a year, then so be it. I just don't feel any inclination to dictate like whether or not somebody has kids. I just feel like if you want to have them, knock yourself out. If you don't, then don't. I don't see, like, I don't understand. I can't wrap my head around caring about whether or not somebody has. I don't understand it. I can't relate. I can't find it within my body and my mind to give a fuck about whether or not somebody else has kids. Now, what I will say is that I think, like, if we're trying to make sense of it, I've talked about this before, but I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that there are people who are invested in the system that they live in. So when you have kids, that is like the biggest investment into the system, because that is the system they're born into. They are going to be subject to the rules and the regulations and the expectations of that society and things like that they're born into. And so I think what happens is why some people care is because, you know, and I talked about this in the video a bit, but you're buying into a system and you're sacrificing, you know, like in fact, I'll put it another way. People not having kids is like people just opting out of not paying taxes, basically. And that's why like whether or not you have kids or get married has always been tied to taxes. When you think about the bachelor tax, child tax credit, things like that, you know, that's even a tactic that that Hitler used in order to stimulate Germany. You know, was, I think, I forgot the exact structure of it, but I think that he like people would have a significant portions of their house paid for, their homes paid for, the more kids they had, something like that. Look it up. But basically, when you don't have kids, it's almost like saying I'm not going to pay taxes. And the power of that choice is really amazing, because like I said, it's like a tax that you just can completely opt out of, and nobody can force it on you. You like within like reasonable means. Without, you know, bachelor taxes or child tax credits and things like that. Now they do hit you with, you know, with the inverse, you know, child tax credits, and then how they get people to pay for like social services, Medicaid and food stamps. So they find a way to do it, but, you know, still, I think that's where a lot of that comes from, is that people who don't have kids are basically opting out of a sort of like tax beside the already established monetary tax. It's almost like giving birth to kids is like it's a life tax, but you don't have to pay it. So how do you get people to participate? Shame, you know, you tout child tax credits, bachelor taxes, things like that. Like you try to push and nudge people into doing it. But again, I think that's where that comes from, is I think subconsciously or consciously, these people understand that, you know, I had kids, I'm paying that life tax, they aren't, fuck you. I think that's where a lot of that comes from.